It's Blazer Thursday, which means it's another time for the Ascend Business Show with James Jacoby, my co-host Bill Walton. And today we're here to finalize the finish of our 3-day series on winning the fourth quarter. Today we're going to talk to you about pipeline math, how to make sure you're doing your forecasting the right way, the common missteps to not doing it the right way, and to ensure you can build $1 million pipeline or more. We're going to break it all down for you right after this. Or right after this.
Power to pay.
And we're back. Good to see you. Happy Thursday. I hope you're having a super productive week. We are. We have just rounded out our first 30 days of a promotion campaign, and we're looking at each other like, did we just do all this? And so, yeah.
What haven't we done?
I don't know.
Podcast, LinkedIn Live, executive briefing, face-to-face briefing today. If you're in Central New Jersey, get to our office today in Parsippany. We've got a live event, but we'll talk about that later. So two guys in blue blazers who also carry the bag. Today is another day of sharing what works, a little bit of the how, but more of the what, a little less of the what, more of the how. And we're talking about pipeline math today, and we're talking about the fourth quarter because we have how many days left? 79 days?
78, I think
78 days. I guess the question that comes to mind is, what have you, if you think about a 78-day period, what, in terms of what you sell, has closed in that amount of time?
That's a good question.
If you think about 78 days, how many weeks is that? 7 into 78, maybe that's 10 weeks, 11 weeks.
Rough
right?
math.
2.5 months, depending on what you sell and your closing cycle. What's realistic? Because you have a couple options. Are you fighting to win the fourth quarter? Or are you fighting to have such a rich and qualified pipeline so that first quarter, you're off to the races? So we're going to talk about pipeline math as it relates to what's realistic now, what can we do now. We're going to take a look at close ratio. We're going to take a look at pipeline velocity. We're going to take a look at mix of business goals in terms of your average deal size that's realistic for you to be able to sell and expect over the next 78 days. So I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah.
I'm ready with the goodies, but
sweet.
Let's put some more context to today and why we're even doing this.
Absolutely. So I love this topic. You may not be the most biggest fan of math. I love math because when you can math something, you can exact your plan. And that's what we're going to help you do today is think through the math and the logical, tangible steps you have to do to hit whatever revenue goal you are saying you want to hit. And I will tell you, and we've all done this. We've all made these mistakes, but we have, in here we have this the propensity to want to achieve, and we want to do something really great. And we're going to say, we're going to go hit this big number. And then sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, you end up not hitting that number. There could be all sorts of reasons why that is. We're going to get into a lot of those today. But the key thing here is we want to make sure you are level-headed, clear, and grounded on your approach to drive sales, forecast sales for your business, for your company in a very easy, systematic way to ensure you're definitely forecasting properly. You have a plan for action that's aligned, and you have just a ready-made plan to go do. And all you have to do after this talk today really is just go do. And that's what we're here to bring to you today.
Yeah. So a couple of things that are on my mind before we get into the nitty gritty of the math is, the fourth quarter is about alignment to me. As we're selling, our buyers are buying. So I'd want to know, we know what's compelling for us as salespeople, but what's compelling right now for the folks that you're calling on, your hot prospects right now, opportunities that are already in your pipeline, which we need to talk about. But what's a compelling event? We're sitting here in mid-October. We're trying to close the year. And hopefully that you're not listening to too much of the news, because there's a lot of opportunity in many businesses, many new businesses, digital businesses that have been formed and reformed and reshaped and realigned throughout our pandemic. And that's what I love about the business world. And I love about what everyone is, I think, on this call, is that we're resilient, right? We're always going to find a way. Salespeople always do. So that's a theme for today. But I'm just wondering, and it's somewhat rhetorical because we're not hearing anyone today, but we'd love to have you chat with us and send us any thoughts. What's compelling for your clients right now if they need to bring in the fourth quarter? Many of our clients say, well, hey, we're planning for next year. Translation, that means they don't have their budgets yet. Right? So anyone who is someone that's touching the revenue process in an organization or the supply chain process, or have their hand on the handlebars, at least part of the vibration of bringing in the business and closing the year strong, they've got to be thinking about what they can do, right? They've got to execute their plan. They've also got to think, hey, listen, am I going to go for some additional funding? So many companies are being asked their people to turn back money to close the year. I'm not seeing a lot of that this year. I'm seeing more, hey, what do you need to close the deal strong? Whether it's they've got additional funding, management understands that, hey, we're in a competitive space. So those are some things I want to think about. Where is your client? Are they looking to grow? Are they looking to retrench? Are they putting their face in the fan? Are they leaning into the fourth quarter? Or are they just kind of hope, gosh, I wonder if the ice is thick enough to hold me for next year? First quarter is going to be so much better because it's going to create ultimate clarity for us. And guess what? It never does. Right? Now is now. So that said, think about your solution now. In 78 days, what in your solution set in terms of what you sell and what's realistic to either introduce, work into the mix, into your pipeline, and close between the end of the year? What's realistic? So I think it might be somewhat of a transactional sale, which is tough for us because I know you and I are not transactional sellers. But when I was in consumer products, we called that turn stock, right? 85% of the sales are off the shelf. So those are sales that keep the lights on and often, are high profitability. So let's think about in your solution set from a mix of business standpoint, what is realistic of closing and can have some meaning for some of your clients. And hopefully many of the clients we call on, customers, have open to buy dollars, or they have dollars left so they get their budgets next year. So they need to spend it all. So that's a nice problem to have. Hopefully you're experiencing that. So those are some things to think about. Mix of business goals, 78 days, what's realistic to close. And what you can do is look back over history. If you've been with your organization for a little while, what has closed over the last, let's just say, call it 80 days for a round number. What has it been? What's the buying history of this account? If you can go back into your CRM or Salesforce, or whatever you've got, into the repository of data, and think about what's realistic. What have they purchased? What can we sell in that tight window of time?
And to add to that, to help you get focused, again, we talk about this all the time, and we are growth hacking in real time about 20 to 30 different little things that we're measuring and testing in our marketing and our sales. But think about, if you haven't done this, when you look at your sales in the last 90 days or so, look at the source. Where are you getting the leads from? Where are you getting the help? Where is the traffic coming from that you're closing and converting on the most, the easiest? If you haven't thought about that, go take a look. It might surprise you where that source is or what that source is, and realize what it is and double down on it, because that's what's feeding you right now. So make sure that if you've been winging it with that source and you haven't put a strategy around it, go put a strategy around it now, because that thing is feeding your business.
Yeah. So what comes to mind is that the theme that we talked about this week on, I can't remember, it was a LinkedIn Live or a podcast. We've done so much, but a concept that came up about winning the fourth quarter was a warm doors approach to your prospect, right? Clients that know you, clients that you've done business with, contacts in your ecosystem where you can say, hey, listen, I've got a reputable product or service and it's the fourth quarter. Yeah, I'm looking to close, but here's the connection I think this service or solution makes. Who in your network do you think might be reasonable, someone to either suffering from those ills that this solution can solve, or they'd be willing to take a meeting with me where I can have a conversation? You're probably doing that all the time, but you want to warm doors this thing in terms of calling on the types of businesses or where you have existing relationships. So that's number one, right on the hit parade of warm doors, existing relationships. And maybe they can introduce you to other folks within their other organizations. So that's number one. Number two is like businesses. If you had to clone your best client, and sometimes I like to ask my clients, hey, listen, we love doing work with you. Where could I find 3 more people just like you that see the value that we bring, that are really dialed into the business and have their hand on the handlebars in the right way, managing their business? I call it the body double approach. Where could I find a client or a business just like this business? Or it could be the formidable competitors. So that would be kind of warm door factor number 3 is the like competitors that are in your space. Again, being mindful of any covenants or agreements. We don't want to have you be, break any of those, but be mindful of competition and the businesses that are similar. So what do we've got so far? Existing clients, the body double approach, clients that would be just like them, competitors. And what other demographics? Maybe it's regional. Maybe it's someone that's close, local. We're in the central New Jersey area. If there was a center of New Jersey, we're equidistant from New York and Philadelphia, north and south. You've got the Jersey Shore and you've got northern New Jersey. So we're in a really great spot. So where are you? If that's a factor, take a look at demographics, firmographics, and geography. You also want to take a look at which companies are growing, which client types or the businesses that you're already doing business with, or maybe a little hungrier, where they're not so much tied to the quarter, the time, oh, it's the end of the year, I can't do anything. We've got to take a wait and see approach. Companies that every day they're looking at growth. Every day they're looking for that other stone or that other bush to look behind for opportunity. We call them fast companies. So that would be another characteristic I would look for the next 78 days is companies that are moving fast.
Yep.
Companies that and individuals that don't have this weight of this big kind of bearskin coat on. Oh gosh, I can't handle any more work. It's the end of the year. I just don't know. It's folks that don't have any restrictions. They're out of their head. They've got to grow, and they're never going to shush away anyone who's got a really good idea and cares a lot about their business.
I got one more for you.
Throw it in there. So
I got one more.
That's almost number 6, or is that up number 5? There's so many warm doors characteristics. What do you got?
This one right here. What's the situation that led them to buy? Find more of that. Call out more of that. And
I like a compelling event kind of thing.
Yeah, there's something triggered in the business on their end. Something happened unexpectedly that said, "Oh my gosh, we need this and we need it now." Yeah. High sense of urgency, right? That high sense of urgency situation will help you close your sales faster because they need it today. So what were those situations with your clients that you've gotten that said, we need this right now, we don't want to wait, and why they want to do it now? If you can say, hey, we just helped all these clients that had this situation, and here's what we were able to do immediately. If you have this thing going on in your business, call us, text us, email us today, and we'll get you set up with a free, consultation. Boom. There's your call to action. There's your tight situation. Someone's going to say, "Oh, that's me. I need to talk to you." There you go.
No, that's great. So, all right. So we got the warm doors out of the way. You want to talk a little bit about pipeline math? Let's kind of go soft focus, fine focus.
Yeah, I want to do that, but I want to take a quick commercial break.
Oh,
quick commercial break. And we have an exciting event today at our headquarters in New Jersey. If you're in the area, it's from 3 to 5. It's a sales training workshop. You can register at training.ascendadvisors.com on the screen there. That's the actual picture of our lobby, and that's where we're going to be doing our live workshop today. So if you're in the area and you can make it to our headquarters, all the information you need is right there on the website. We would love to see you. It's going to be super fun, and hope you can make it.
I know I'm going to be there.
Well, I'd hope so. You're the one leading it.
That's right. Please join us.
We're going to have everyone come, and Bill's going to go home. No, I'm just kidding. So with that, check that out. training@ascendadvisors.com. We do one live training workshop at our headquarters per month. We won't tell you what the next one is yet because we're still on planning on it. But come check us out today. So let's get back to pipeline math. There's a few things you got to ask yourself in terms of how do you calculate all of this. So we talked about, what's closest to the money first. We kind of just went through that, right?
Let's spend some time on that though.
Okay.
Let's jump into the pipeline. So
yeah,
I'm going to go off of my experience as a salesperson, typical pipeline that I could wrap my arms around. Typically, my pipeline had anywhere between 20 to 25 opportunities that I felt were qualified. Qualified meaning they satisfied some of those warm doors criteria that James and I just shared with you. So that's number one. You really want to have a number of opportunity for a couple reasons. From a psychological, emotional standpoint, so you're not wed to any one opportunity. When I first started selling, I'd have 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities on a pipeline, and I clung to those like an old blanket, like an old teddy bear, because I didn't want to let them go. And I was so invested because I was hoping they were going to close, right? And you just can't, right? You have to have a flat emotional plane. So you need numbers, but you also want to make sure they're qualified, that you've identified a business issue worth solving, that you are having conversations with a person likely to buy or recommend. Number 3, that this has a viable, there's a business problem that's being solved that is timely and relevant, and that it's something that the firm, your organization is uniquely good at, that you can stand and deliver and rinse, lather, and repeat. So those are the kind of the best deals that I like to have in a pipeline. So if you had to think about, I'm going to, again, be very vanilla and generic here, but I'm going to say that the average pipeline has 4 stages. And I'll give you I'm going to go from stage 4 to 1, 4 being we've submitted a proposal. So the money is in. Mm-hmm. Money has been introduced. A proposal and an agreement is in the hands of the prospect or the client. So that's stage 4. Stage 3 is where you've tested some options and you've already put forth some recommendations without the money. So the problem's been identified. You've been able to discuss a few solutions, and you have now a short list of ideas that has a high level of interest, where you're literally at the doorstep of the client saying, I want a proposal, take me there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to make a comment on that part.
3. Go ahead.
So when you're in that stage, right, where you're making the shape of the deal, the shape of the scope of what you're working on, I have always found that rather than give someone your kind of canned in a box solution, which may or may not fit, ask them to co-create it with you. Say, here's kind of where we're headed, but let's talk through this together. What ideally do you want to have happen here? What does this look like that you want to see? What success look like? Oh, yeah. Right? And kind of have them help you shape it so that literally it's a custom, perfectly tailored scope of work that when you send the money in, it aligns, right?
You are tapping into, James, something that's so powerful that and I'm embarrassed that I didn't think about for this session, because one of the things that I see and that we don't do is we actually get worried when a client asks us for a proposal too soon.
Yeah.
Because we don't know enough. Mm-hmm. There's not enough context in the request. So one of the things that this kind of stage 3 is about is the theme that I like to use is rough layouts sell better than polished ones. Because if you submit a proposal too soon, and this can happen in the 4th quarter, it's too final too soon. And psychologically, the client or the buying team doesn't have a chance to chew on it, to run it up the flagpole, to discuss it, to hammer on it, to have some input on it. And so oftentimes that a document that we submit in that stage 3, I call it a discussion document. Mm-hmm. It's literally, a client used this term, proposure. It's part brochure, part proposal, right? It's hypothetical. Yep. It still has options. And we're not tied to a delivery schedule. We're not tied to money yet. And that's where I see in terms of pipeline opportunities stalling, is that we went to proposal too soon. We worked really hard on the proposal. God, they said they needed it by Friday. I got to get it out the door. 6 o'clock. Oh, God, they have to have it over the weekend. Email, send. Oh, yes. And then you don't hear from someone for 6 weeks.
Yep.
There's no engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So another topic for another day is how to submit a proposal, but also as you submit or agree to submit, you're also getting a date and a time to review it. There's not a PowerPoint or a Word document that has enough life and has enough you in it and has enough interpretation in it to close the sale. So that's another tactic for another day. So that's stage 3. But stage 2 of the pipeline is typically we've had an initial conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our coffee talk meeting. We've explored at a high level some needs and some context of the organization has been discussed. I'm seeing an opportunity and there's some agreement to kind of want to learn more. So that's stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 1, and this is a tricky one. Why should a stage 1 opportunity be in a pipeline? Because number 1, they satisfy all the 6 criteria that we talked about of a warm doors opportunity. They represent all the characteristics: smell, taste, sight, looks like, smells like, walks like an opportunity that we've had before, a client that we've seen before, and a situation we've seen before. And through our marketing, they're a prospect now because they've shown some level of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one. So that's, again, you've got different pipelines or you're using a certain CRM, but those are the kind of the criteria that we use to codify an opportunity in the pipeline. Why that's important is because so much of selling and buying is behavioral. You need to have a realistic expectation of what the buyer behavior is at each one of those stages. At stage 1, hopefully they're going to agree to a meeting. At stage 2, hopefully they're going to agree to participate in a collaborative effort to shape a solution with you.
Mm-hmm.
At stage 3, we've all had a conversation that, gosh, we left no stone unturned. We're probably thinking about how do we put an agreement together to get started. Okay, so that's behavioral and contextual. So those are things to be mindful of when you are addressing pipeline opportunities. So if you had to think about that, if you had 20 to 25 of these opportunities and you've codified those on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 meaning I've submitted the proposal, or 3 meaning I co-created something with a client and we're reviewing it, the first thing you want to do in terms of closest to the money, right, for the fourth quarter is go to your 4s and your 3s.
Yep.
Where can you get agreement to close out those 4s to say, hey, listen, I know you're busy, but just remember through this whole process, we left no stone unturned.
Mm-mm.
You were diligent, we were diligent, and we'd be remiss in not asking for your commitment because we are fired up and we're pledging ours.
You know, one thing that I've seen come up with this stage flow, or some you may call it deal flow, same thing, is there's definitely clients that want what you just said, that want that custom tailored approach. They want to be involved. They want to shape it. But then there's some other clients that are more of the, we're so busy, you know what you're doing. Just what's the price?
Yeah.
Give it to me now,
Right.
And let's go.
Spit it out.
Spit it out. And so that's a little bit different flow of what we just said. But when you're looking at your opportunities, you also have to factor that in is to know what kind of buyer are they, and what are they expecting from you. Now, just to finish this because we could go down a huge tangent here. I don't want to do that. But just on that front, if that's something that you're dealing with, you're thinking about, and you're getting buyers that are like, just give me the price. I need this today. What do you got for me? Be ready to give them a price if that's what they want, right? You don't have to push them to say, no, let's slow down and do this really custom thing. They're gonna be like, no, give me the price now.
Yeah.
Give them what they want, right? So be prepared to have a price in a scope that you can just quickly say, hey, without any customization, this is what it is. And here's the success factors for making this work, by the way, because if there's any involvement on their end that makes this work, just disclose that right there.
Well, I think that comes back to having more qualified opportunity on your pipeline rather than a handful.
Yeah.
Because then you can go down to Walgreens and get that padded neck brace and put it on and just say, hey, here's the pricing.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. And
Right.
If it's a no or a not yet or maybe, well, you want to stay out of maybe land. It's you've done what you can, and that's kind of where we are. And in another workshop, we'll talk about closing and language and things of that nature. But James brings a good point, particularly in the fourth quarter, where it's okay to be a little transactional and tactical because that's kind of what we have the time for,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
So I
some thoughts about pipeline velocity, right?
Yep.
And get your your threes and fours done. The concept, I think we shared this earlier, was doing what's closest to the money first.
Right.
Because in the fourth quarter, there's going to be a lot of things to distract you. There could be events leading up to next year, end of the year paperwork and administration. We really want to try to kind of crowd that out and really work against live opportunity. And this is your dash, right? This is your kind of 78-day dash.
The last thing I'll add on this segment is when you because Bill did a great job there of explaining and having you think through what are all the factors for this person's business and buying right now. Staying on top of the reason they want to consider you, right? Because urgency, we know, is a key factor for them to buy right now, right? The urgency has to be at the peak point for them to say, okay, now's the time, let's go. So it may not be the right time, but you still may be laser focused and bullseyed on the business need. It's just not the right time for them. They're doing something else, but that's still a need for them. So just keep reminding them of, hey, this is what I understand is going on in your business right now. Is this still the case? Confirm. I would confirm that probably at least once a quarter at minimum to say, is this still a need for you? Are you still thinking about this? Yes, yes, yes. Oh, now it's the time. Cool. Let's go forward and talk about a solution then. Or if not, cool. Let's recircle in 60 days. Right.
Yeah, that's a good plan. It's a good idea.
So with that in mind, though, I think one thing that we want to cap this off with is thinking about, for pipeline math, what is the average deal size, right? Because you have to, I guess, maybe am I skipping ahead? Should we go to that?
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because, deal size is going to figure into what's realistic to close in that 78-day window. Obviously, bigger means more money, means more people and more time and more orchestration. So you need to know, what is realistic in terms of deal size that will actually close. And so, what, when I look at a pipeline, I know that there's going to be immediate opportunity. I think about clients that say, hey, listen, what are you guys doing? In November, we have a sales meeting. Can you come down? We need you for a couple of days down in Dallas. Yeah. And what's your fee? They just trust us. And like, great. We have a great relationship, but we show up. We do our gig, and we submit the invoice and our expenses, and that's wonderful. That's great. Relationship-based transactional business. So that's what you kind of want to look at too, because if you're introducing a new concept, if you're starting from net new, with the treadmill not even be running, then you're going to have to get that first meeting, the coffee talk meeting, and then have a couple weeks before the next meeting, and then compare calendars if another stakeholder has to get involved. Before you know it, you could have added 6 weeks to a process before you're even thinking about talking about a sale. And that's why we've dedicated so much of our work. This isn't a pitch for it, but so much of our work to digital selling and some of our AI sales enablement tools is that we don't have time for the 3 to 4 weeks that it takes to set up an initial coffee talk meeting and then chase you down for another 2 weeks to get the next meeting. We just don't have time for that. And the good news is many customers and clients and businesses are realizing we don't have time for that either. So that's a time factor. But yeah, you want to take a look at mix of business goals and your average deal size to think about what you need to close your number in terms of the gap.
Yep.
Whether it's a $10,000 sale, $20,000 sale, or a $100,000 sale, and to think about your shortfall between now and where you are. You got to plan for that. Then you also have to be realistic. Is, hey, if I've got a $50,000 goal, maybe I need to sell 5 $10,000 gigs, or make $5 $10,000 sales, which might be easier than one $50,000 sale. It kind of really all depends where things are in your pipeline, how fast your clients move, and where you can go and get your best business in the fourth quarter. But here's some mathematical things that you can think about that can also help you with your pipeline math. You want to also take a look at your close ratio. And there's a couple ways to do that. The easiest thing to do is over the last 6 months to a year, take a look at all the deals that have been in your pipeline, and take a look and look at the deals that have closed, and literally do the math. What percentage of those deals closed into a piece of business? So that's an easy way to straight line it. So
this is big. I mean, if you've never done this before, this would be such a huge exercise for you to learn what happens in your sales process and sales cycle. Because once you understand that there is definitely, don't kid yourself, there is definitely an algorithm and a way about how your business closes deals that you definitely need to be aware of. And if you go through this, you can start to really visually see why things converted and why they didn't.
If those of you who are very linear and analytical, there's a mathematical formula that you can use. And here's the mathematical formula. And I'll give you the formula in the form of an example. So let's just say you have 10 closed sales, right? You closed 10 sales, and that took 50 sales leads. So what you're doing there is you're dividing the 10 divided by the 50, which would give you a close ratio of 20%. So let's just say the close ratio was 25%. What does that actually mean? Not so much for the fourth quarter, but for the year. A pipeline needs to be made up of a multiple of your close ratio to make sure you make your number. And I'll give you, let's do the math through an example. Let's just say your number for the year is $1 million. That's your quota. And your close ratio is 25%. You don't need $1 million of opportunity in your pipeline. You need $4 million in your pipeline. So when you're prospecting and thinking of activity and how much should I have in my pipeline, don't even think about your quota. Think about your close ratio, because you need, if it's 25%, which I'm sure for all of you it's higher, you need 4x. You need 4 times that amount, which leads to other discussions. You know what? Holy smokes, I got to get out there. I need more meetings. I need more activity. I need additional opportunity.
Yeah.
And then we come back to the mix of business conversation. Okay, what am I going to do to get to a $4 million pipeline in that example? How big do the gigs have to be? Or I'm doing the math. Hey, if my typical solution is $50,000, I'm going to need that many gigs to make my $1 million quota, or satisfy a $4 million pipeline.
Yeah, and this is so big because
and that's sobering.
It's super sobering, and this is, what is this going to prevent? This is going to prevent you fast forwarding 78 days from now, and you're like, how did we do this year? How did we finish out the year? There shouldn't be any surprises. There shouldn't be any surprises, and there shouldn't be any like, oh man, how did we miss? Like, we wanted to get here. How did we not get there? You will avoid that if you do this, because this is so sobering. If you take your close ratio percentage and you look at the need, or what Bill said, the shortfall, the gap of how much sales you need still this year, that gap plus times the ratio, that's the true sales volume you need, the target number to get you to where you want to be.
Which is the next thing is, let's talk about the selling activity that you're going to need to meet some of these goals. So one of the things that we're finding is, and again, I'm going to assume that these are prospects that you don't know yet, or that are a lead, might know of you and your organization, but they haven't expressed any interest to buy yet, or they've done that in a faint way and they're a prospect. It typically takes 6 to 7 touches to get that first meaningful meeting to where need is meeting opportunity, and we're having a dialogue and we're all in the right room together. All right. So if you think about this, so 6 to 7 touches, let's just call it 7 touches. Let's do round numbers.
Yep.
And then there's going to be 4 meetings, 7 touches for the first meeting. And then you've got to set up another 4 meetings, right? You have coffee talk meeting. You'll have some type of discovery meeting. You'll have an options testing meeting and a 4th meeting to review the proposal. So if you had to think about 7 touches and 4 meetings, that's 11 touches per deal. Okay. So think about that activity level. 1 deal, 11 touches. So if you got a 25% close ratio, 11 divided by 25, that's 44 touches. So that means meetings, 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 meetings. This also means try to collapse some of this conversation, segueing initial conversations into discovery, rather than having the coffee talk meeting and exchanging pleasantries at Starbucks and then passing business cards over the top of the roofs of our car, which we're all known to do. It's blending that initial meeting with likely ideas for us to collaborate, or the biggest pebble in your shoe that you'd want to solve for. Normally you'd want to, build a relationship and be mindful of not being too salesy. I think in the fourth quarter, when you can collapse the accordion a little bit on the meetings and economize on that, by the time you got to that next meeting, you've unearthed some of those needs and the pain points, and now it's kind of idea share, and idea share rolls into here's what a proposal would look like, and talking ranges of pricing before you commit.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some ways to kind of, collapse that accordion. But, the math gets important in terms of what's realistic a day, right? So if you're following this math, that could be anywhere between 30 touches a week minimum, which means, how do you get that first meeting? And you know how long it takes for you to get the first meeting. And the concept is, I think in the fourth quarter, don't think about selling your solution, right? So what I mean by that is you need to sell the meeting. It's different. You're not selling the thing.
Yep.
You're selling the verb, not the noun,
right,
early on to fill this pipeline.
Right.
So deep thoughts from Coach. What do you got?
Coach is breaking it down for you. But it's so, again, it's like
as we live it.
Yeah. Right. So just go back. I put these up on the screen as you were going through this. So let's just say you had, your average last 90 days, let's say you had 10 closed sales. And if you look at your leads, you had 50 leads. That means you had 20% close ratio. Okay. 7 touches to get that meeting on average, and then another 3 to 4 interactions to get invoice signed, contract signed, payment in, cash in the bank, right? So we're talking about 11 touches for one closed deal. And then, let's say it's 25% close ratio. That means you got to have 44 touches. 44 touches to get one deal closed on average, right? And so if you need 10 deals still this year, because you figured, let's follow me, right? 10 deals, you need 10 deals in 78 days. And let's just say your average deal size is $10,000. That's $100,000, right? You need $100,000 in sales. So that means you got to do what? 440 touches? Yeah. 440 touches to get your 10 deals?
Yeah. So
and your close ratio?
Yeah. And
440 touches.
The math is sobering, and what it requires is a faster way for you to book meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go today, we'll talk a little about a methodology and some technology that we have for all of you that can help you do that. But today is not about selling that. We want to make you aware of it, because you really got to pull out all the stops. So that's the biggest thing. So let me just kind of peel back the onion again and go to the top where we started. So today's about fourth quarter, 78 days, warm doors approach to opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about the requisite activity level for not only now, but these are disciplines that are going to serve you well ongoing. Third, we talked about doing what's closest to the money first, your stage 4 and your stage 3 opportunities, right, that are on the brink of closing or the brink of what's next. So, and then the fourth or fifth concept, I'm kind of rolling these two together, is obviously you need more connections, and you have to sell the meeting. Don't sell the thing. When we meet, that 30 minutes, that 40 minutes, that hour, or let's just say you have 20 minutes. What's the value? What's the asset that's going to get created in that meeting? Figure that out. Go whiteboard that with someone. Find a partner, grab your sales leader, talk to your CEO, talk to who you trust, and think about, gosh, what are those top 5 to 10 reasons to meet where we can connect? Now, it's going to require, this is where you put your business acumen hat on. And you got to figure out where your solution enters into the supply and the value chain of that company. It can't just be about the thing. We're moving away from what we've got to what we're seeing. We want to create something compelling.
Yep.
When it's compelling, things speed up. When it's compelling, you have better conversations. And when it's compelling, you can take what you've harnessed out of that conversation and have 5 more because you have context. And that leads to better conversations, which leads to a pipeline that converts and has greater sales velocity, which that's going to be next. I don't want to, that's a complicated formula for sales velocity.
Yeah.
But these are some of the things you could think about. So I'm thinking that our audience is probably thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get off this call and book some meetings. Yeah, you do. But think about where you can add some help. Get yourself on a hurt and rescue mission over the next 78 days. Who's hurting? Where can you rescue them? Where can you accelerate that buying process and that selling process for you?
Nailed it. I mean, and think about it, like I have on the screen right now. Why should they meet with you right now? Why? What's their situation, right? We just went through that. If you got the situation nailed down, remember from 20 minutes ago, I said that if you know the buying situation that's helped you convert sales, use that situation in your marketing. in your marketing. Go out there and say, hey, are you in this situation right now? Is this something on your mind, but you don't know what to do with it? We got to talk today.
Yeah.
Here's how. Here's my number. Here's my email. Here's my website. Here's my call link, whatever. But nail the situation, create a space to invite them to come in and have that safe discussion about the issue that's on, or Bill would say the pebble in the shoe.
Well, the thing that's coming to mind, and this might lead into our close and kind of a pitch for Ascend Advisors, what we're doing, why we're actually in front of you, is there's some compelling data that's come out recently about the need for a different approach to buying and a different approach to selling in this era of remote selling in our pandemic. And this really powerful piece of data, I believe it was McKinsey, came out and said only 20% of buyers plan to go back to the old way of seeing salespeople face-to-face post-COVID. Translation, 80% of who you're calling on are happy with doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do engagement remotely. You have to do engagement remotely. We have to think about where your clients and your prospects, and this is going to feed into your pipeline velocity, where they go for the straight dope and where they go to evaluate solutions in your space. Where are they going? Because they don't need you to come to their office anymore. Ever since when the internet became powerful with email and browsers and T1 lines, the immediate need for that first informational call, got to call the sales rep, went out the door. And now I might not need to meet with someone throughout the entire sales process. So we've created various sales enablement tools to increase, number one, your personal credibility, who you are as a business person, define closely and more tightly what your organization does. I think about that hurt and rescue mission in terms of what needs do you address and what problems do you solve. And then through social engagement, we can talk about the type of impact that your organization is having. But more importantly, what type of impact would that client want? What are they seeing? So it's almost kind of like wearing their world like a second skin.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple ways we can do that. We've got that technology, but here's some goodies, right? Here's some fun stuff. Google the job description of your ideal client over the next 78 days, your ideal prospect. Think about what their challenges are. And these job descriptions are everywhere on the internet, job boards just floating out there on the internet. You can find them. And they tell you a couple things: responsibilities, accountabilities, scope and span of control. That will tell you a lot of how you can build a messaging meal out of what you learn from those job descriptions. You also want to think about, hopefully, if you're on LinkedIn or you have the opportunity to use Sales Navigator, some of the popular tools that we come across, you can start thinking about what they post and what they say. Ideally, in this marketplace, in this world, particularly over this kind of 78-day dash that you're on, is that you want to connect with people that are already active in social media, that have a point of view, because they want you to have a point of view. So you can accelerate this process of stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 by having more engagement and having a point of view and interacting socially, instead of waiting for that first coffee talk meeting when they're available to come meet with you at Starbucks. Let's just take that off the table, and we can help you do that. So that's enough of the commercial from me.
No, so good.
Period on the end of that sentence.
So good. So I'm gonna start with this and end it with our free download that you're seeing on the screen right now. Get that if you have not gotten that yet. The 21 ways to accelerate your pipeline, the lead acceleration kit.
I downloaded it.
He downloaded it. He uses it. We use it. I love it. We use our own stuff.
I'm going to use it today.
I'm going to use it today too. Speed. Bill just talked about speed there, right? We all know. You know which prospects or leads are slow, are more some people say tire kickers, or just they're not real leads, right? You know they're not probably going to go anywhere, or it's not right now. So stop at the beginning of this talk today. We talked about that. We sit on opportunities that are stalled, that are probably not going to go through way too long. And we have a false pipeline, right? Go through the thinking that we did today with you and just make that decision. Is this a real potential lead that we can move today? Or am I kidding myself? And get the kidding yourselves out of your mind, off your pipeline, off your board. There's other people that really do want to work with you right now, and you need to shift your energy and focus on them. The next thing is what Bill said is think about speed. If you know some of your leads are very active on digital, Messenger, DM, Instagram, wherever they are, you can probably get to them quicker. Think about the speed to get to your lead. Who is the fastest? Use that as a criteria in your leads list of who can I get to the fastest because they're responsive, right? Think about that. Pair that with this download. Get this download and do what we did as you think about all the things you talked with you about today. This is the great place to start. Look at all the leads that you forgot about that you have sitting in your lap that you can call today, and think about the situation that you are converting the most on. Does your situation that you are doing best with fit with that lead and that exercise you just did? And so use that as a filter. So now you got speed and you got situational fit with your leads that you're looking at, and engage those ones today that match both. That will help you start to really move things through your pipeline flow, your deal flow, and that will help with your pipeline math. Hope that made sense. I kind of went through it quick, but that's huge.
As we close, was one thing we didn't talk about is mindset, right? This over the next 78 days.
Yep.
This is where we put the pessimist in all of us in detention. All right. We all talk at about 125 words per minute, but we think at a rate of about 450 words per minute. This is where we bring the optimist to the fore. Not because we need to be perky and positive and it works for us. Oftentimes, we're the pause that refreshes for clients. They don't have it all figured out. They're under stress, as many organizations can't find enough talent. They might be resource constrained. You've read about supply chains being restricted. There's a lot of stuff in organizations going on that we have no idea about that can really be dragging them down. We've got to be that source of optimism. We've got to be that source of doing something about the things we can control. So I just wanted to say that. Stay out of your head around that, because this can be a really interesting time of year. And let's get our hands around that as we do the same. So you can lean on us for that. If you need some positivity, give us a call. Find us up on the web. Obviously, Ascend Advisors, ERS Advisors.com. We'll talk you out of it and get you in the right shape.
Have a good rest of your week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good selling.